Hey everybody, what's up? In this video, we're going to talk about how to become a sourcing expert. And the sourcing that I'm referring to is buying used clothing and selling it on eBay, Poshmark, whatever platform you use. I prefer eBay. That's the only platform I sell on. But learning how to source items from like the flea market, the bins, the thrift stores, and reselling it online, that's the type of sourcing I'm referring to. Now, when it comes to the reselling game, I think that the most important skill you can learn is sourcing. I think that is on the top of the list, being able to source items that people actually want to buy. And what I'm specifically referring to is high sell-through items. I think sell-through is the number one thing that you should be focusing on in this business. I think that the people that do that are the ones that separate themselves from others. All right, so in this video, I want to break down 3 components that I feel are necessary for you to learn in order to become a sourcing expert. So let's jump right in. All right, so the very first component is that you must learn the items that actually sell. Now, this is very obvious, but I feel that a lot of people don't take this really serious and they don't do the research required for them to really know the items that actually sell, like the ones that have the highest sell-through. So when you first start reselling, at least what happened to me was that I would go to the thrift store and I was very intimidated. I was very overwhelmed. I didn't know what to pick up. I remember seeing a few videos online talking about good brands to find at the thrift store, but I couldn't find those brands. I mean, there were good brands and those brands you just don't come across too often. So at the very beginning, it's going to take some time for you to build a database of knowledge when it comes to learning which are the brands that actually sell. Some people just kind of do it through experience. They kind of base it off of what they're hearing other YouTubers say, but I think that you must go directly to the source. You have to go on the platform that you sell on and find out from the platform itself, based off of the search history, what are the items that are actually selling. But just learning the brands is level 1 of becoming a sourcing expert. That's where everybody starts, but you have to take it a step further. The next level will be to start learning some of the nuances of these brands. So some brands have sub-brands. You have like Quicksilver and Quicksilver Waterman Collection. Quicksilver is a brand that I don't pick up, but Quicksilver Waterman Collection I do because it has a higher sell-through. You have to start learning the subcategories. There are some brands that do really well in polos, but they don't do well in t-shirts. So it's not just learning which brands, it's taking it a step further and learning the subcategories, learning the sub-brands. You also have to learn the sizes. I think this is the next level. Now you have button downs, but sometimes button downs in small and mediums don't do as well as large or extra large. Or there's a lot of brands that don't do well when it comes to sell-through until you get into the 2XL or higher. So each time you break these down into more variables, there's gonna be a lot more learning to do. So you really have to start building a really big database in your mind or in a spreadsheet or something that really starts to break these things down in all the variables. Now, I think that the last level when it comes to learning the nuances of the brands is things like learning the materials that people really like and are looking out for. How does seasonality come into play? Like, how do things sell when it comes to winter versus when it comes to the warmer months? Features, what are some of the features that people are really looking out for? Like, I've noticed that Henleys do really well in a lot of the brands. And lastly is designs, like just having a good aesthetic eye for seeing a graphic that people are gonna wanna buy. Now, when it comes to learning all these brands and nuances, it's important that you're basing it off of research from the platform itself, or you're basing it off of your own analytics, like what's actually selling in your store. All right, the second component is that you must understand your profit margins. Now, to find out the profit margin, you first have to figure out how much your items are actually selling for. Now, since I use eBay, I use a tool called Terapeak that allows you to find out a bunch of information on the items that you sell. I just created a video that breaks the whole thing down, so I'm gonna link that video somewhere here. But it's important to understand the profit margin so you're not overpaying for your items at the store. Once I really started to learn about profit margin, I started to realize that there was some items that I was just paying a little bit too much for. But now I'm becoming a lot more strict when it comes to how much I'm paying for items. If it goes over a certain amount, I'm leaving it at the store. But you want to do this not only to make a profit, but to be able to know how much room you have to either price it competitively or to lower your price when you need to move an item, when an item is not selling, or when someone submits a counter offer, you know how much room you have to be able to still make a profit on that item. All right, the third component is that you must learn the best places to source your items. Now, this is going to take some trial and error. It's definitely going to take some time for you to go to different places at different times for you to really start to get the information that you need to know which are the best places to source your items. You have to consider things like speed, how fast you're sourcing your items at specific places. When I first got started, I got excited about the bins because since you're getting items for really cheap, then there's a big profit margin there. The problem is that it was taking me a lot longer to find items at the bins because I had to sift through so many different categories, right? I'm going through women's clothing, I'm going through jackets, I'm going through pants, shorts to finally find one shirt. And that shirt just wasn't an item that I wanted to pick up, right? So I had to go through so much more in order to find items that I wanted to sell in my store. On the contrary, when I went to the thrift store, I realized that that is the fastest place for me to source items because I'm going through about 1,000 shirts within an hour, right? So I'm basically paying a little bit more of a premium to get items at the thrift store because it's already sorted for me, right? It's already curated for me. So I zip by at the thrift store, I zip by those shirts really fast to find the brands, right, that I'm looking for. And it's just more convenient because everything is in one place. So for me, for my business model, the thrift stores work better because it's faster for me to source items. On the other hand, my wife sells all types of clothing. She's not limited to one category or one subcategory. So the bins does really well for her. She can find a lot of items there. The next thing you want to consider is the quantity of items that you're picking up at specific places. Are you picking up 8 items an hour at the flea market versus 4 items an hour at the thrift store, right? Where are you picking up more quantity of items? The next thing you want to consider is your margins, right? I talked about the bins. The bins has a great margins. Garage sales have great margins because people are just trying to get rid of their stuff. So they're going to sell it to you for very cheap. But you have to weigh the pros and cons with getting a good profit margin versus how many items you're getting, right? For me, it makes more sense to get a little bit less margin going to thrift stores because I could get so much more. And the total items that I get gives me a bigger margin than getting lesser items with a bigger profit margin. If I was to go to the bins and I only find 2 items that I can make a $10 profit on, but at the thrift store I can find 6 items where I'm making a $5 profit on, then I'm making $30 in profit on one end versus $20 profit on the other end. A couple other nuances that you must learn is what are the best days when it comes to the sales, right? Thrift stores have sales on specific days. You have to learn those schedules. Another thing to consider is when they put out new inventory. I go to a specific Salvation Army that they put out most of their inventory, new inventory on Thursdays. So I like to go on Thursdays versus the day that has the best sales because I think it's more important to find high sell-through items versus finding, things that are on sale, but they don't necessarily have the best sell-through. So for me, it's probably most important to find out what are the days or the times when they're putting out new inventory. So these are the necessary components that I feel are going to take your sourcing to the next level. And like I mentioned before, I created a video on learning the profit margins so that you know how much to price your items on eBay and what to pay for them at the thrift store. If you're interested in that video, you can check it out right here.